of you believe that it's a bad thing that we freed the slaves? How many of you believe that we should go back to black people being in chains? Okay, cool. Now that nobody said yes, because I'm assuming that each one of you is a basic-ass human being with a brain that functions and actually has at least a couple neurons to rub together, we can all agree that slavery bad. Okay? Cool. Again, I hope that I don't have to be proven wrong when I look in the comment section. And no, your weird BDSM fetishes do not count. But speaking of those weird fetishes, we do have to talk about the fan art section real quick. And thankfully, this one is not a fetish. This one is actually, well, a miscommunication, actually. Okay, so this is fan art of Cutie Pie, Saki's black cat with crossed eyes. It is referencing a moment where my other black cat, Blackie, who was my old cat who passed away, Gigi's son, got himself trapped in a tree, and we had to spend $300 to get an arborist to get him down. Unfortunately, we have 3 black cats who all look damn near identical, and the only things that differentiate them are Blackie has scrungly fur and is more lean, Cutie Pie has crossed eyes, and then Cutie Pie's father, Konako, has a single white spot on his head that no camera could ever pick up because it is that small. So, a completely understandable miscommunication, but it's still really funny. Father, I crave the trees. As always, thank you for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, please drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. Also, the fan art contest has now had all of its submissions. Now that the new model is out and available for everybody to see, we are no longer accepting any commissions, any more submissions for the fan art contest. Who submitted that one? Axel. It was Axolotls with Cream did that. That's the one. That's the one. I need to put the glasses back on. Without the glasses, it looks incomplete. So no, cats in their tree shenanigans. Exactly. Exactly. But, okay, now I gave you that primer about slavery because we need to talk about this guy.
The Hamites have been assigned to a civilizational station of subordination and dependence. And the answer to this paradigm is not endless foreign money. That's not the answer to this problem. The answer is to return to European Christian colonization of African nations.
Buddy, my guy. No, we do not need to immediately go back to getting the fucking triangle slave trade going again and imperializing a whole bunch of nations for having the sin of being located in an area where people tend to have more melanin in their skin. So because we didn't do enough damage the first time? Exactly, Shooty Bob. Exactly. Slavery bad. Colonization also not a good thing. And yet, the Bible says we gotta go back to all of it. Well, why is that, Mr. Preacher Man? Mr. Preacher Man, whose name is what here? Who the balls are you? Dale Partridge. Dale Partridge, everybody. Alrighty. Well, Dale, continue.
I believe that's truly the answer, and let me tell you why. It's the only thing that has historically worked, that has shown fruit. I'm not talking about overtaking Africa. I'm not talking about enslaving Africans. I'm not talking about exploiting Africans.
But what does colonization look like if not exploitation of the natives in the area? And historically, when we did colonization the first time, we did the slavery thing. You can't say that you're not talking about doing the slavery or the exploitation thing because those are, in fact, part and parcel with how we went about that.
But I'm talking about establishing order, godly leadership, and carrying the gospel to their lands.
Remember, it's not slavery. It's establishing order. And we get to decide what that order looks like. And you have to be subservient to it. And, oh, that actually just sounds like the first steps to slavery. Maybe we're not in such good company here, my friend. Maybe we're not doing so well at all here. At all. No, not at all.
In fact, the only times that African nations have seen significant and sustained civilizational improvement, and I'm talking
What does civilizational improvement mean to you, buddy?
Talking about infant mortality rates going down. I'm talking murder going down. I'm talking disease going down, tribal wars ceasing. The only time Africa has ever seen that happen and being sustained is...
Can you also do me a favor and tell me which region in Africa you're talking about? Because this is like me saying North America and me including everything from Canada and also Mexico, because the cultures, the climates, everything are going to change those numbers in various areas. So maybe we should, talk about which place you're actually talking about. We do this weird thing in America where we lump all of Africa together in a giant bucket, and we do the same thing for India, by the way. We lump the entirety of India together into one giant bucket, despite the fact that it has so many different countries with different fucking rules of engagement everywhere, and yet we do not see them as anything other than India. When we're talking about Europe, we can make distinctions. We're just like, yeah, France, yeah, Germany, yeah. United Kingdom? Yeah. Africa? Most people couldn't tell you a fucking country in Africa. In the United States. Most people couldn't tell you a country in India in the United States. I know I can't. Not off the top of my head. And that's not to say that you personally could or could not, because you actually have access to Google, and I'm sure there's going to be one person who's going to put up a list because they Googled it, and they're going to feel all smarmy and great, and no. So again, if we're talking about Africa, what are we talking about? Because the rates vary significantly depending on where you are on the continent. If you're in the sub-Saharan area of Africa, then you've got about 52-ish deaths per 1,000 live births. That's your infant mortality rate. Somewhere in the realm of 5%. Across all of Africa, it's somewhere in the realm of 38%. Or not 38, but of 3.8%. 38 deaths per 1,000. However, the infant mortality rate there has actually improved over the years. Strangely. Now, while several nations within Africa do still have very much, record high rates of infant mortality globally, continent-wide, their infant mortality rate has declined substantially. Do you want to know what's actually caused their infant mortality rate to be as bad as it is? Do you want to know why it is as bad as it is? It has nothing to do with God being there or the white people being in charge. No. No. The actual things that cause the infant mortality rate, the things that actually have an effect on it one way or the other, is the healthcare industry of any individual nation there. What infrastructure they have access to. What the poverty levels are like in that area. And what their access to clean water looks like in that area. Bringing the Bible to those nations doesn't fucking change any of that. It doesn't magically fix it. In fact, here, let's do some reading. You, me, the class. Together, as a family. I reject all fucking cookies. No. A lot of progress has been made in Africa over the last few decades, but there can be few examples more crucial to the continent than this. In 1955, infant mortality rates were at 183 across the continent. 183 for every 1,000 live births. That is an 18% infant mortality rate. In 2020, this was reduced to about 136. And now, the number's even lower. In fact, in terms of countries with the highest infant mortality rate, Afghanistan has the highest infant mortality rate across the planet, and their infant mortality rate is 101.3. Oh yeah, a reduction of 136, making it down to 47. Even better. Even better. I misread that. Thank you, Tasha. So if the dude's gonna freak out about their infrastructure, their infant mortality rate, it seems we're already on a pretty decent track there. Things are already kind of improving over there. It says, while the reduction rate varies on a country-by-country basis, the overall decline can be attributed in large part to the expansion of healthcare services, improvements in nutrition, and access to clean drinking water, the implementation of large-scale immunization campaigns across the continent. The temporary slowdown has been attributed in part to rapid urbanization of many parts of the continent that coincided with poor economic performance, resulting in the creation of overcrowded slums with poor access to health and sanitation services. It turns out that cities, by and large, are better for people than urban environments, because in cities, your commercial districts and your residential districts are blended, which means that your commerce is way better for everybody around. Everybody has easier access to commerce. They don't need to pay as much money in order to actually travel anywhere within the city for their own job. And, oh, by the way, healthcare access is infinitely more guaranteed when the hospital is a few blocks away as opposed to a few miles away, which is what happens when you do urbanization. Caesar's big, sweaty, oiled up. Hi. Okay. That is certainly a name. That is certainly a name you have for yourself. I just realized that this model came with pink eyeliner. Hold on. Nope, incorrect. Yep, it just occurred to me. This model has pink eyeliner. Probably because of, you know, this. But, okay. A rapid increase in making cities without properly planning the cities is the actual problem at hand here. So yeah, there are two issues that can happen when you are expanding your population centers. There's two issues. Well, there's a lot of them, but the two that I want to focus on are, one, suburban planning. When you do suburban planning, when you do that, you can inadvertently create a situation where the people who typically had access to the things that they needed around them no longer have access to those things anymore. And the things they need are proper healthcare, access to food, access to jobs. If that stuff has been moved to miles away from them as opposed to meters away from them, that's a problem. On the other hand, when you're building a city is not a catch-all solution to everything. When you are building a city, the city needs to be properly maintained. Its sanitation needs to be maintained. You need to make sure that enough of the city is built up and out so that people are not overcrowded. You need to make sure that for a certain amount of square feet and a certain amount of populace, there is easy access to commercial areas where people can get jobs, areas where people can purchase food that is safe to eat, and areas where people have access to healthcare. And if you do not have these things built properly in line with the amount of people that are piling into your city, if you do not have your residential and your commercial aspects evenly balanced in this city, then you get people who cannot afford to live because they cannot get jobs in the area. That can lead to slumming. You get people who cannot take care of themselves because they don't have access to healthcare, or the healthcare gets overcrowded. You get a lot of issues there. Said, while Africa's current rate is still far behind the likes of Europe and the United States, the United Nations projections predict that the current rate in Asia, 25, to be reached in Africa by around 2050. There remains a lot of work to be done through, though, of course, and as described by O'Neill, large regional differences still exist. There remains a significant imbalance in the continent, with sub-Saharan countries experiencing much higher child mortality rates than those of North Africa. But yeah, no, like he's freaking out about how we need to go and retake over Africa, but all of the numbers seem to suggest that that's not what we need.
Seen that happen in being sustained is when they have come under Japathite supervision.
Let's listen to all of your stupid shit one more time in context now.
The Hamites have been assigned to a civilizational station of subordination and dependence. And the answer to this paradigm is not...
By the way, Hamites is an obsolete term that we used to use to group people from North Africa. That's what the word meant.
Endless foreign money. That's not the answer to this problem. The answer is to return to European Christian colonization of African nations. I believe that's truly the answer, and let me tell you why. It's the only thing that has historically worked, that has shown fruit. I'm not talking about overtaking Africa. I'm not talking about enslaving Africans. I'm not talking about exploiting Africans.
Which, by the way, again, like I said, you are actually talking about all of those things. Because when you start talking about the colonization of those areas and putting them under the rule of white people, every single one of those flows from that first idea.
But I'm talking about establishing order, godly leadership, and carrying the gospel to their lands. In fact, the only times that African nations have seen significant and sustained civilizational improvement.
Which, by the way, they've had significant and sustained civilizational improvement for the last 70 years.
And I'm talking about infant mortality rates going...
The thing that's already been going down.
I'm talking murder going down. I'm talking disease going down, tribal wars ceasing. The only time Africa has ever seen that happen in being sustained is when they have come under Japathite supervision.
Did you know that right now, in sub-Saharan Africa, where the homicide rate should be higher, they have 12.2 murders per 100,000 people? And that number has dropped by 3% from 2002 to 2023. Now, while the continent on the whole does account for 31% of all global homicides, their rates have been lowering by year again. So weird. Anselin says, how about kicking out the white saviors and giving the locals what they actually need? Fennec says, and all black folks just want to be left alone. What is this one?
I don't know if this is a rhetorical question.
Oh, I fucking love this guy. I love this guy so much. Every single time one of his shorts pop up on my feed, I have to watch it like twice. This man is a national treasure.
But the answer is they would follow us anywhere we went, ever. There's all these red-pilled racist jackasses all over TikTok saying, how come European countries are the only ones that are being forced to diversify? How come that does...
Yeah, Shooty just went, what is it now? Yeah, that's his main thing, is what is it now?
Get enforced on anyone else. We're the only ones that get forced.
This how it's only white majority countries that are forced to accept diversity.
Bitch, this is y'all. All up in the whole entire world's business. In the whole entire world's business. Ain't nobody ever tried to force themselves onto y'all back when you were leaving everybody alone, because you suck. Attila the Hun was like, nah, Hungary's far enough. Genghis Khan's like, who all over there? Like, bro, you can go almost anywhere in the world and expect people to speak English because white people violently refuse to mind their own business. So yeah, they'd be like an abusive stalker ex. They would follow us anywhere we try to get away from them and find joy. Wherever we went, there'd have to be like a you have to wash your legs law, or no raisins law, or maybe like a no shoes in the house law, or you gotta wash your eggs and not drink raw milk law. Like anything that outlaws filth might repel them, but probably not, because they don't care about laws either.
Okay, I have to watch one of his videos again. I love his shit. I love his shit. He's so great.
What is it now? Someone doesn't like our new series of advertisements. Mr. Newman, that's me. Old-fashioned proteins. Put our meat in your mouth. Slaughtered with love and weapons by an unsavory cabal of Negroes, Native Americans, unmarried women, and the Irish. Made with real animals grown on an actual Virginia plantation. Toiled upon with care and irony by captive whites. You are interested. www. Oh, but not everyone is amused. Our friend here writes, interesting. I guess if it was turned around, people would cry racism and not satire. That's the irony of people who say they are marginalized and have no privileges. When government, academia, and the media favors you and you can do and say what you wish without pushback, then you are the most privileged belle at the ball. You see, friends, a big part of illiteracy is not knowing what words mean. Satire is the use of humor, irony, and exaggeration to point out flaws and ridiculousness in individuals, society, and institutions. For this situation to be reversed, I would have to be a white farm owner writing an advertisement that said, grown on an actual Virginia plantation, toiled upon with care and irony by captive blacks. The problem is that wouldn't be ironic, because that actually happened. Slavery was the centuries-long beginning of a long...
So, if you've never seen his content, if you've never seen it before, he does a lot of this just turning shit on its head, and it is great, and it is fantastic. I love his shit. He's wonderful. But yes, he's right. Like when the person goes, "Oh, it's satire instead of racism," when it's the other way around. Yeah, because when it's the other way around, it's the person who historically was oppressed versus the people who actually did the thing. Like that shouldn't be hard to understand. I need this child. This small little bean. This absolutely adorable child of screaming. Hello. Goodbye, child of darkness. Yep, that's right. You just jump right there. Okay, it's this way. Hello, you cross-eyed animal. Yeah, I understand. You don't spend time with your mom anymore whenever I'm in the office. You just come here and you bug me all day. You see, I don't even know why you're like this. We're not even talking about the topic anymore. I'm just making fun of a cat now. That's basically what my channel has turned into. I make fun of a cat. Don't show me your ass! Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitt, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.